The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
You know, I was really surprised. After the writer's strike, I didn't know there was going to be anything else that was going to really go ahead and catch my attention or catch the attention of anybody that's watching media. Except for Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Boy, that go ahead and grow overnight, over the weekend. So we have to talk about that. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I've already kind of figured out what this audience wants. Okay, the numbers have been growing for the program pretty exponentially right now because of some of the stories I've done. You know, I learned a while back that if I'm going to go ahead and talk about stories here on the program that might be industry related, that I have to put something else in that's much more pliable, much more approachable to the audience out there. And also for all the people that I had a chance to promote the show with. Again, Lou Pate, thank you for the bump. And thank you all that have been catching all the clips and stuff for catching this program. Going to kingofpodcasts.com and subscribing to the show. Finding the YouTube channel, and please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Look for the videos there. And also to look for the show itself, all major podcast platforms, everything starts at one place, kingofpodcasts.com. So yeah, I didn't know I was going to get into, you can't help it. Because Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce have become such an item in terms of the impact of what it's done for the NFL, what it's done for the whole zeitgeist of, like, you know, what men and women are doing on a regular basis on Sundays or during the weekends, watching football. And the fact that the NFL gets the opportunity to go ahead and put football out there and get a younger female demographic in some cases, in general, to go ahead and latch on to watch football. This publicity kind of thing right now is going to just go on for a while. You can't help it. For Taylor Swift, I mean, I don't know if it's helping, if it's really, I mean, really it's two media behemoths with the NFL and Taylor Swift herself and the kind of press they're getting for each other from the entertainment gossip types where, you know, as we wrap up the Hollywood writer's strike, which is the story I initially wanted to talk about, which I will talk about to start off the program. And then we eventually have to go to Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. We have no choice. Like I'm held hostage here. I have to talk about it. What else am I going to do? I have to give the audience what they want. And there's a reason why this show's done so well is because I've done that on a regular basis. I've been placating. And that's okay. I can't just talk about radio every week. And, you know, I put my shows out there and sometimes they don't hit like they would normally hit like other shows because it's still, at the end of the day, the show I'm trying to bring on of stories that I think are important. And that's why I do it. Anyway, we are going to talk about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift. Don't worry about that. It's in the graphic. It's in the story. It's in the title. We're going to talk about it. Just give me a little bit to go ahead and talk about what's been done right now about the contract agreement with the Writers Guild and the Alliance of Motion Picture and TV Producers, because that got done, and that was Tuesday night. All the words being said, we heard everything that was going to say that over on the weekend, that everything looked likely to have that happen. And the board members of the union approved the contract agreement with studios. It's done. And now we can go loom along and see that happen. And in pretty quick fashion, the actors should also follow suit. Next week, they're planning to go ahead and meet up, and negotiations will continue. So we're going to get somewhere pretty quick. And with the Alliance already going and taking care of the contention that the writers had, specifically, the word was that what the Writers Guild got, according to the Writers Guild themselves, was exceptional. They got what they wanted. And so going back to my original story back in 2019, well, they went head to head with the talent agencies over packaging and getting that part of the deal done and individualizing all those talents, writers, story runners, directors, actors, all of that, not being put into one package deal by the agencies anymore. Can't do it. And it's better off this way. I think it has. Now, here we are, and all the major points we're going to talk about now that the writers got from the Alliance of what we know of right now. So take this, I'm going to take right now from what we learned. So far, we don't know we're going to find out exactly what it was in the deal that they got. Let's go ahead and talk about that first. One of the first major points was the streaming residuals. But they found a way for it to work out. And here's what we got so far. The tentative agreement with studios and streamers includes several firsts, which include protections against artificial intelligence encroaching on writers' work and guarantees on minimum staffing levels for many series. They can also cut the writers in on the success of streaming shows, something that's never happened before. A success-based residual will pay writers of streaming series and movies a bonus of the equivalent of 20% or more of a streaming service's U.S. subscribers watch it within 3 months of release. So, if the shows do well, the bonus is a good way to get themselves where they need to be. And by doing that, the streaming services will not be held to giving up their metrics. Because if they did, it would hurt them in the end. So now, it's not an easy threshold to reach based on the limited viewing data on streaming programming that's publicly available, but it's not impossible. So in the residuals portion of the deal, the agreement enshrines the recent definition of a streaming view as its measure of success. Total viewing time of a movie or season of a show divided by its running time. That's the basis for Netflix's weekly top 10 charts. Disney Plus has done that to do the same thing to top their own successes as well. The number of views over 90 days, 3 months, divided by the number of domestic subscribers a streaming service has. If the result, what the Guild calls the series or movie's performance metric, is 20% or higher, the writers get a 50% bonus of the fixed residual for high-budget programming on SVOD platforms, on streaming video on-demand platforms, based on fixed residuals for both domestic and foreign markets, in case where streaming services pay the latter. They're going to make more money off of it. That's at least what they were going to get. And they're going to say, okay, we're going to give you the bonus. So there's something to work for right there. The Alliance did not want to do the viewership-based residual, and they only agreed to confidential quarterly reports to enable the Writers Guild to develop proposals to restructure the current streaming residual regime in the future. So one of the things was talked about was one of the co-chairs of the negotiating committee, Chris Kaiser, talked to Hollywood Reporter, says, would we have wanted an even greater bonus in streaming than we got? Of course we would have. In our proposal, we asked for more, but it became a conversation about numbers, and we settled on something in between. That's how negotiations work. So they still got this point. Like normally, the money's coming in. That was important to them. They got that. And that's what they wanted. That's fine. Like if they got that part, that's what they wanted to get. So the studio group, on the afternoon of September 21st, the CEOs were on site during this part of the negotiation late last week. The studio group presented a package that addressed key concerns: minimum staffing for writers' rooms, AI protections, and success-based residuals. And there was also a late ask that the studio side saw, which was a deal point protecting members that they declined to cross other unions' picket lines. The Writers Guild had been signaling for weeks it would seek such a provision. And then Bob Iger, as part of the group, got upset. And this late ask could have disrupted things that were going on with the studios, and the negotiations could have broken down, but they didn't. Now, in the details we have, Chris Kaiser and Meredith Stein talked about the turning points and sticking points in the talks, and they basically talked to Hollywood Reporter about what happened. The tentative agreement was reached on September 24th, and it's still subject to member ratification to take effect. So we know what they're putting in here for that. But we're not getting the entire full breadth of the details right now anyway. But they said that one of the things that really contributed to what was going on with all this here was the fact that the actors decided to go ahead and stay on strike in solidarity with the writers. That helped make the biggest difference of all when it came to the writers getting their deal what they wanted. And the Writers Guild said they couldn't leave the contract negotiation without a solution for solving problems that were very existential for them. The Alliance of Motion Picture TV producers tried to isolate the Writers Guild in the drive towards pattern deals. That didn't work. And the Screen Actors Guild says, we also have existential issues and need to be accounted for. So the Alliance tried to go their routes to try to make the deal that they can make with very little concessions. They had no choice at this time. It was inevitable that the companies were going to have to come back to the table and make a deal that solved their problems. And so that's what they did with that. So in the story, Chris Kaiser talked about that the Alliance always tried to put downward pressure on wages and working conditions. But they got to eventually a real conversation with the companies where they understood that they needed to treat this seriously. And there were challenges coming out of the fact that the business had changed so much was necessary to protect writers, and companies need to be able to come to terms with things they had never thought about talking about before. Second drafts for screenwriters to MBA terms and streaming for Appendix X, protection of the writer's room, transparency money for programs that perform particularly well on streaming, and protections against AI. And there was also issues like script fees for staff writers and pension protections for teams. So they couldn't go the same old route, is what they're saying. When it came to the AI concessions, they said that the companies they claim some ongoing copyright rights in using our material, and we claim certain contractual rights that limit that or would compensate us for that. And we said we're going to retain all those rights given the fact that no one yet knows what the world is going to look like or what the use might be. And they figured out in time and instances where the companies actually do want the material to train. But instead of negotiating beforehand a world we don't understand, we retained every single right we have to negotiate for writers, and writers retain every single right they have both under the law and the minimum basic agreement to protect themselves in circumstances of the companies using our material to train. Meredith Stein chimes in, talking about what were the concessions that were made by the studios. Screenwriters got new and important protections, so did comedy and variety writers. TV proposals were complicated because it wasn't just the minimum staff size. And there was this weird narrative that was one sticking point, which was false, but we had interlocking proposals that needed to be accepted to work together and restore the way that a writer can make a really good living as a TV writer that the streaming model had come in and sort of degraded over the last decade. So we got protections for all of our members, which is what our hope was, and we ended up being able to do so. Writers Guild has had some track record now of successfully negotiating for better deals for themselves. So 4 years, full circle, they got the agencies to step up. They got the studios to step up. Very powerful right now. It just took a long time to get there. There was no choice, but they had to go and do that route and go roughly 5 months to get there. You couldn't do anything else about it. So they get to this point. They make it successful. Congratulations to them. But that's basically what we have right now so far. That's what we've learned about what's been done with this here. And congratulations to them. It's good to see that they got all this handled and worked out. And now, next deal is the Screen Actors. And where do they go next? So we can talk about the deals that are going on right now of where studios are with certain projects. Now that things have come back, late night shows are coming back on Monday. The Screen Actors Guild is next, as we talked about. Let's go into that. And the latest news on that is that bargaining will continue at the SAG-AFTRA headquarters in Los Angeles instead of the studio's offices in Sherman Oaks. SAG-AFTRA officials have insisted on a venue change because they weren't happy with the AMPTP setup, where contract negotiations for all the guilds and unions have historically been set. And they wanted to take it out and put it in, foreign territory, basically. Have them come meet in our yard. So that's planning going on and moving forward. And there are some interim agreements, so some projects have been going on since, and they got the green lights to go and continue, so they're fine to go along with that. So one of the things that happened, that studios started to reinstate suspended overall and first look deals, and not all packs will be extended. So the producers and all these different, studios that were doing projects that were suspended and their money was cut until the unionization was over, the strike was over, have been brought back up again. A story for The Wrap came out talking about the 5 days to end the strike when writers and studios finally had a contract breakthrough. Because what the media, the press, the Hollywood press is talking about the most is how they finally got everybody back on the table and got the negotiations to get happening. Because you're talking about a lot of egos in there with the studio executives that were there to work out things in general. Plus, we also had the Jewish holiday of Atonement. We had Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, right? I think both of those days. Okay. And so last Wednesday, there was a breakthrough moment with a series of end-of-summer phone calls by the Writers Guild to several studio CEOs. And then the meeting was set for the 22nd, 2 days later, or there was a first point where the Alliance met with the Writers Guild on August 22nd, and in that meeting, they had the CEOs there urging the Guild to accept the counterproposal it had offered 11 days prior. We talked about that a few weeks ago. Proposal was refused twice. Getting to Labor Day, we knew that the heat was coming on pretty hot and heavy, and calls were made publicly between the two sides, urging the other to make the next move. And showrunners started asking for meetings with WGA leadership to share their concerns for the financial stability of the writers and crew members for their shows, asking for updates on when talks might resume. And then we had the financial damage for the studios and the SEC filings. And then Chris Kaiser made a call to David Zaslav at Warner Brothers Discovery. There was a mutual agreement to put aside time to make the next counterproposal. And they go along. The CEOs get all together. And they meet up. According to the story, they say that David Zaslav and Bob Iger were the drivers of this. They were the deal guys who understood the imperative to get in the room and be face-to-face. Langley and Sarandos, Langley with Paramount, or no, not Paramount, NBC Universal, right? And Sarandos with Netflix. They brought expertise of understanding the impacts of contract language in the real world and knowing what mattered and what didn't matter most. Counterproposal came in. In the counterproposal, this one in September, after Labor Day, was the bonuses to the writers and film and TV shows, the streaming residual plan, brought in. And at least the counterproposal got a better reception, so there was more to go ahead and draw out, but there was finally something to negotiate with. And by Thursday the 21st, last week, a week ago from this program, the word got out the studio side to agencies and reporters things were progressing so well, a deal could be finished by the weekend. But the Writers Guild wanted to take time to make sure everything got done right. So it took over the weekend to get it completely done. And on that Thursday night, there were new items that were not part of the discussion, and that might have ruffled some feathers, but one of the questions they had in that last ask was protections for writers who wish to remain on the picket lines in solidarity until SAG-AFTRA reached their deal with the Alliance. And it was brought up in August previously, before the CEOs got involved. So they just wanted to make sure that the Writers Guild could still be able to go ahead and picket along with the actors in solidarity and not be penalized for it. So the CEOs were not aware about it. They didn't get the memo. That's the only thing that happened there. But that all got worked out. And on Friday the 22nd, that's when the CEOs made their last day there, and everything else was up to the lawyers. The Writers Guild would win two-step pay for screenwriters and minimum rates for writers of comedy, variety, talk, game shows, and other TV shows under Appendix A. So all that works themselves out. And that's really great news to see this happen, that we're finally done with this. And honestly, to go ahead and finally now put behind us all this right here when it comes to what happened with all that's going on with the Writers Guild and all this, I'm very happy that we're all done with this. We don't have to even worry about this anymore. It's just kind of like put by the wayside. It's done. And now I can move on to talk about other things besides that, because this was a long time talking about this and many episodes to talk about it. Got kind of tired of it. So we needed this to happen. And now when it's all done, we're going to finally get ourselves back to where the deal was done soon enough where we could still get a fall season going on, and maybe some programs will come back and new content will come back, and that will obviously, we won't have the major issues where we could have had, where it was a possibility that the movie theaters were going to go and lose movies coming up because of the strike. Now, obviously there were changes in the movies that were coming out. That was going to happen. Okay. What are you going to do about it? But we got to the point where it's all done now. We don't have to worry about that anymore. That's it. So now we know how this all works out. We more or less know what we've gotten. From everything I'm reading, it looks like everything is set to move forward for the studios now to give more concessions to the writers and eventually to the actors to finally get this done, because there's nothing much else they can do. That's it. The work stoppage is done. Here we go. Back to work. But there are some things that happened here that did cause some issues after all this done. Because the TV business is still getting further contraction as the marketplace reopens. And this is from Deadline. 148 days of the writer's strike. 148 days. Now, for those working in television, Deadline writes is that they don't know what kind of business marketplaces they're going to be going back into. Different than 5 months ago. Accelerated contraction, more competition, reeled in budgets, fewer overall deals, possibly more cancellations are where some industry sources expect that media is going to be going right now when it comes to Hollywood. There are a ton of projects ready to go out when networks and streamers reopen for business. Though buyers do not expect the type of frenzy we've had over the last decade, many pitches have been held back from last winter and early spring amid a terrible market as buyers batten down the hatches in anticipation for a potential strike. So no one is buying right now projects. So how receptive is the marketplace going to be after the strike? One seller says across the board, what I've heard from buyers that they will be buying less and making less. In April, there were indications the reasons for this slowdown were deeper and far beyond strike preparation. One person told Deadline that at the time, a potential strike, quote, forces everyone to go on pause at the same time, but they all need to reframe and pivot as if they have so much that's not working. Now, as for cancellations and renewals, so cancellations are going to continue. There were 4 shows that are canceled now at Stars: Heels, Run the World, and Blind Spotting, and The Venere of Samantha Bird. And other cancellations of shows that have been greenlighted before was Showtime's Gattaca and Season, and Apple NBCU's Metropolis, or renewed. Prime Video's The Peripheral and A League of Their Own, and Peacock's Pitch Perfect, Bumper in Berlin, are all heading into their second seasons. One other insider says that, quote, there will definitely be more rescinded renewals, which will likely extend the broadcast networks as they examine their needs for the rest of the season in light of how deep into the strike, into fall, the strike went. So one person makes a point and says on the broadcast networks, if second or third seasons were ordered before the strike, doesn't mean they will stay ordered after. And as for developmental season, the 2024 pilot season, networks and streamers' development slates underwent close examination. Industry sources expect portions of them to be released. Other projects that were in early stages, including that. So the 2024 pilot season can still be salvaged. And as for budgets for series, show budgets by and large are expected to be similar, even smaller, even at places that would have been generous. So broadcast drama might be getting $4.5 million to $5 million an episode, and about half of that for a comedy. So streamers, which have been shelling up $20 million plus an episode for a series like Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Stranger Things, House of the Dragon, and some Marvel/Star Wars shows, they're going to try to keep budgets at about $5 to $10 million an episode. So they're going to all start cutting. So watch the quality of these projects on streaming that are going to be less quality. That's not good news. The streaming gold rush that had an overall deal boom a couple of years ago is over. So the studios buying up content left to right, they're not going to do that now. They're going to be much more picky and choosy as to who they're going to go ahead and bring on and greenlight projects and put money into. Because right now they're hurting with the inflation. They're hurting with the economy. They don't have the money for it right now. They're trying to go and recoup. The overall deal market is expected to get even tighter with streamers and studios not only looking how strong writers, producers, existing shows are, but what stage of their life cycle of the series are in to decide whether they sign another overall deal or just a pack for the writers, producers, services if a show might be nearing the end of its run. So at one point, there were almost 600 scripted shows in 2022. We're not getting back to that again. So keep in mind, Hollywood is going to be making less after the strike, because no matter what the strike did, the studios couldn't keep pace with this And they just can't keep putting out this much money because the investment hasn't gotten the return. That's what it really is. The streamers are hurting right now. Now, 3 years later, they're all having to go and jack up their prices. All of them. Okay? Hulu, Disney already went up. Netflix went up. The others are going to have to follow suit. I know Peacock went up like by $1. It's all going to happen like that. There's just no choice. So, this what's going to happen. And they have to make their money. And the ads market is still low, so they're not making money off the networks, not making money off the streaming. You know, I mean, Amazon Prime, they just now added a deal where in a couple of months, they're going to have an ad tier for themselves for Prime Video, which means as a Prime subscriber like myself, unless I keep the same price, if I keep the same rate that I have for my subscription, which I think is $139 a month, I'll get Prime Video with ads. But if I pay $2 a month extra per month, then I won't get the ads. So basically, take my $139, make it $165. So I'll be paying that for the year so I don't have ads. Well, I'll pay it. That's not a hard buy for me. That's okay. So the truth is, the cord cutters, what are you going to do now? Because everything right now with entertainment is costing too much. And I said this last week too with the strike. While you are finally getting Hollywood back together and the writers and actors are going to finally get some things to ensure their future, gives them a chance to make money and make a living and still make this a career that people want to go and go from anywhere around the world to be a part of. But because of the less amount of content that's out there being scripted or being done and produced, means live sports will still be much prominent as always. You also have to consider that, you know what content is being on social media? All the content being done there by influencers or whoever it is, that's going to continue to grow. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Listen, as long as they keep doing what they're doing, there are certain projects that are going to go over there. We talked about how TikTok now has certain TV programs taking the Quibi model and now doing more with content. And so what will be the point where maybe some projects might not even go to the studios or the streamers? They might just go somewhere else. Maybe they don't want to work within this whole mess. That could be another problem that comes into play eventually. There's one other story that's related to the strike, which I got to talk about. I'll bring it up right now. The Screen Actors Guild members. They're actually in another strike coming up now because they actually have just voted to authorize a video game strike. The members of the Performers Union voted 98.32% in favor of a strike authorization on the interactive media agreement covering video game work. So we're not even done with the one with the studios. Now we got the video game companies that are on this too. Now this is 34,687 members casting ballots, which is a representation of a percentage of 27.47% of eligible voters. But new union negotiators now have the ability to call a strike during ongoing negotiations for a new interactive media agreement if they deem one necessary. Now, negotiations over the new contract, which covers voice, motion capture, stunt work on video games, as well as the performances, have been ongoing for nearly a year, with a group of employers including Activision Productions, Blind Light LLC, Disney Character Voices, Electronic Arts, Epic Games, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac Games, Take-Two Productions, VoiceWorks Productions, and WB Games. The union, SAG-AFTRA, is seeking to improve significantly compensation for their performers working under the contract to counteract the effects of inflation, regulate the use of AI for performances in video games, and implement greater safety measures for both on-camera and voice artists. Ray Rodriguez, who's the chief contracts officer for the SAG-AFTRA, they've been leading talks with the unions, and he says, quote, between the exploitative uses of AI and lagging wages, those who work in video games are facing many of the same issues who work in film and TV. This strike authorization makes an emphatic statement. We must reach an agreement fairly compensating these talented performers, provide common sense safety measures, allow them to work with dignity. So there's that. So we got this going on. I'm not going to really focus on this too much. That's just what they're going to be doing. So let them figure that all out. I want to take one more story that's in Hollywood right now before I move along to Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, which I'm going to talk about next. Martin Scorsese says that the industry's over. He's directing the new blockbuster coming up. What is it, October 20th? Killers of the Flower Moon. I'm looking forward to it. It's a 3.5-hour movie, by the way. 3.5 hours. He talked to GQ magazine saying the major studios no longer support auteur voices. They see better risk and returns from easier to market tentpole franchises. So he's complaining about the fact that, movies with quality that are not part of an intellectual property are the ones being made and not more of the movies like he would make. He says, quote, in other words, the industry I was a part of, we're talking about almost, 50 years ago? It's like saying to somebody in 1970 who made silent films, what do you think's happened? He said major studios preferring the easier to market popcorn movies that have franchise potential no longer have interest in supporting individual voices, he says, that expresses their personal feelings or their personal thoughts and personal ideas and feelings on a big budget. So they pigeonholed it to what they call indies. So the veteran Hollywood director, he says that superhero popcorn movies are dependent heavily on special effects, manufactured content. They no longer represent cinema. Quote, it's almost like AI making a film. And that doesn't mean you don't have incredible directors and special effects people doing beautiful artwork. But what does it mean? What do these films, what will it give you? Aside from a kind of a consummation of something and then eliminating it from your mind, your whole body, so what is it giving you? Now, he's not wrong. So the other problem too is that we don't want to talk about this much, but let's be honest here. The popcorn movies we're getting right now, especially with the DC movies we've been getting, there's a lot of complaints about it. Because the CGI and all the effects we're getting, they're not good. Look, Blue Beetle had some issues. Flash had some issues with CGI. Expendables had incredible issues with CGI. Okay? They were on a very cheap budget. I'm curious what the creator's going to do this coming weekend. But across the board, they're not wrong about this. I mean, of all the movies I've seen this year, it's been tough to find some movies that were really not popcorn movies. I mean, just a handful. Just tonight I was watching my father, watching Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, because it just got on a Prime Video. And I watched that in the movie theaters. Very good movie. Did not make a lot of money. But it was really good. Would definitely recommend it. But what happened was that, they went here and it's like, even the work they're doing right now on the Marvel movies, like, we're also kind of spoiled with the fact of what Star Wars has looked like in their recent hits. When you're looking at what the Marvel movies have done, anything Avengers, Iron Man, Spider-Man, right? We're not getting a lot of that kind of stuff right now. And Aquaman right now, going into the Christmas season, is also getting a lot of crap right now because they're saying a lot of things bad about it. We'll see how it's going to work out. Shazam also was very disappointing. A lot of those superhero movies are not holding up this time around. People are still going to see it, but they're not as much as they were. They all can't be Avatar, right? So that's where we are, man. It's like a lot of struggle at this moment with movies, and looking to find movies that we're really going to enjoy and appreciate. Like, there's some good movies coming out still. At least we still got movies that'll be worth watching. I got a couple this week I'm going to watch myself, so I'm going to go ahead and catch Dumb Money and The Creator. That's coming out wide release. But then after that, things really slow down a bit. Because I'm looking at what I'm going to look at now coming up for October. It's kind of like quiet. Taylor Swift, the Eras Tour is coming out October 13th, and that's going to take over a lot of things. And Killers of the Flower Moon is already out now, coming up October 20th. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Dick's the Musical. Oof, okay. And then a lot of movies for Halloween weekend. And then we move up a little forward with a few more movies coming up going into the holiday season with Priscilla and the Marvels and Journey to Bethlehem and the Hunger Games about a Songbirds and Snakes. By the way, Rachel Zegler, is that right? She's not doing Snow White now? Like, after all is said and done, she's not going to do the movie. It took her out of it. So she's got Hunger Games. She's going to work off of that. And then we got Napoleon. That's going to look great with Joaquin Phoenix. That looks really fun. And a few other movies coming into December. Wonka coming out December 15th. And Aquaman December 20th. Among others. And Ferrari December 25th. So hopefully there'll be some movies I can find in between time, all that good stuff. That's what I'm hoping for anyway. All right. The impact of Travis Kelce, and the luck of the draw of being able to go ahead and get the hand, starting a relationship with one of the biggest pop darlings in the world. Now, when I'm talking about Taylor Swift, look, you see what's happening right now with the fact that this a relationship we have right now between these two, it's a conversation among football fans, among the regular entertainment gossip types, all of it. And it's never ending. Like, I have football fans that are like kind of upset now. They're like kind of tired of the whole thing already. But yet, the Kansas City Chiefs are going to the New York Jets, MetLife Stadium, and Taylor Swift is now announcing she's going to be at the game to watch Travis. We're going to get that now. And she has time before she gets back on the world tour, the Eras tour, because she's taking a little bit of time off now. But the movie's coming out, and then she's back on tour. She's going to go worldwide, go global. I talked about on the Praise and the Debaucherous series I took a matchmaker that actually talked about it and said, okay, this might work because of how things work out with how they're both very much successful in their own rights. And they don't necessarily need each other, for any physical responsibility. It's more for romance. It's more for companionship. They look compatible. Just off of that alone, it looks compatible. If you want to just go by that, that looks like it could be. And it looks like she's a proper football fan, which is cool. Well, on the media side, there's a lot to be said about what happened from this. Jersey sales for Travis Kelce have spiked. What else do we see? Travis and Jordan Kelce's podcast now, the number one Apple podcast right now. Number one on the listing. The jersey sales for Travis Kelce have gone up by nearly 400%. And by the way, 24 million fans watching a blowout, because the Bears, after it was all said and done, the Bears were completely out of it by halftime for sure. And people stayed around to watch the game because it was Taylor Swift in the press box, or in the luxury box with Travis Kelce's mom. And yeah, why not? They went with it. Went ahead. Now, I'm not going to do what these other places do. We'll talk about that. It's whatever. And a lot of people have talked about what's going on. It's amazing the power that Taylor Swift has and how she's able to wield it over. The story from Us Weekly. I mean, I haven't read Us Weekly. I used to pick that up. I haven't picked that up in years. But there's a story they brought up that said that while Taylor Swift was going to be in attendance at Arrowhead Stadium this past Sunday for the game, Fox sought permission to play some of her songs during the broadcast, but the record label publishing company turned it down. How about that? But it still didn't stop the Fox announcers to use, some verbiage for a touchdown for Travis Kelce. The first touchdown he got, he only got one. I know because I have him in fantasy, and he did very well for me. They said Patrick Mahomes got the ball through blank space to get to Travis Kelce for a touchdown. And it was also, how kismet is that Travis Kelce gets a touchdown, and we get the response by Taylor Swift, "Let's fucking go." And what a great meme that we're going to see forever. And I mean, how can you not love the woman? She's, as I said, I respect the hell out of her as a businesswoman, as a talent, singer, songwriter, and the career that she's made for herself. After everything that's gone on, being able to go ahead and get albums re-recorded once again, and Taylor's version comes back out, she's getting to make the money that she wanted to make off of it, and all of that, it's wonderful. And now, with the fact that Taylor Swift is expected to be at MetLife Stadium to watch the Chiefs-Jets game, Jets tickets are soaring. And by the way, the New York Jets are 0-3 this year. They are shit in the bed. It's bad. So New York Post reports on this. And so the NFL is embracing the Taylor Swift-Travis Kelce relationship. The 12-time Grammy Award winner will be putting her budding romance with a 2-time Super Bowl champion tight end on display this Sunday. And by the way, it's a Sunday Night Football game, so there you go. Oh boy, fun. And so vendors spoke with the New York Post and said that there was a spike in Chiefs-Jets ticket sales on Wednesday night after Taylor Swift broke the news that she would be at the game. Average ticket prices went up from $428 a ticket to $627. According to U Stadium and StubHub, the Jets sold them more than double the amount of tickets in a single day, more than any day of the season. Just like that. And then if you look online on StubHub, Chiefs Jets tickets were going for as little as $106 a ticket for the bleeders to $8,729 per ticket. Ticketmaster prices $117 to $10,543. It's not known if Travis Kelce's contract includes suite access along the road. I would sincerely doubt they're not going to give a luxury box to Donna Kelce and Taylor Swift to watch the game. If they're going to do that, it's going to be something we expected. The Suite Experience group, the suites are sold out, but someone behind the scenes will most likely have to pull strings to accommodate Taylor Swift, which means somebody's going to get kicked out of their suite. Just saying. The NFL is going to handle that. Don't even deny yourself that. And by the way, ticket sales for Kansas City Chiefs home games have tripled following Taylor Swift's visit. It's incredible. The impact that she has on what's happened so far. The ratings have gone up. The ticket sales are going up. It's not even, she's just appearing. For those people that I've heard on TikTok that have to go ahead and stitch back somebody that will say, oh, that she's just as popular as Michael Jackson. Listen, she might not ever maybe she'll get to that level someday, but she's still very young, okay? What about Michael Jackson, into his 50s, and also having come on. You're talking about a guy that had, 40 plus years of a music career in front of him and all the millions of records he sold beforehand. Like Taylor Swift in this current climate, in this current environment, this generation right now, this millennium, she rules. Completely rules. Everything's going her way. And the NFL couldn't be happier about it. Now tonight, we also get word about Mark Cuban, the billionaire owner of the Dallas Mavericks, and decided to make some comments, and people are getting all caught up on that and what he said. Travis Kelce responded to Mark Cuban's request for Swift to date a player on his Mavericks, with the NFL star saying he'll join the team. And for whatever reason, Mark Cuban decided to go and make some comments. Says, Taylor, sorry if you're listening, Travis. Break up with him. I got a bunch of good-looking single guys that play for the Dallas Mavericks. I got you. And Travis Kelce writes back, just sign me to a 10-day contract. So he would play for the Mavericks on a limited contract. So Travis Kelce's won the ire of the Swifties. There's admiration for him. In July, he admitted he attempted to give Swift his phone number after seeing her perform in a concert. Quote, I didn't get to hand her one of the bracelets I made for her. He said this on his latest podcast, New Heights with Travis and Jason and Travis Kelce. So this is serious. Like, he's putting up public inroads to date Taylor Swift, and he got it. He did it. He got the girl. Good for him. He tried to give Swift his phone number. So he went to, so first of all, Travis, as a gentleman, he went to the concert first. He did it. The two eventually made contact. Taylor Swift comes to see him play. And it's funny, People Magazine gets this story wrong because they said they went to go see the Chiefs game at Allegiant Stadium. No, that's the Raiders. Arrowhead Stadium. The answer is Arrowhead Stadium. But listen, People Magazine doesn't do this much with football, so I understand. It's okay. Kelce was expectedly excited to see Swift celebrate the win. He gushed to see the slow motion chest bumps, to see the high fives with mom, to see how, Cheese Keenan was all excited that she was there. That shit was absolutely hysterical. It was definitely a game I'll remember, that's for damn sure. So, People Magazine's learning that it wasn't their first time hanging out after the game, that there have been some super, super early days of getting to know each other, but they're having fun. They're taking it slow, just hanging out. There's no pressure, according to a source. The impact of this right here. And to think I'm talking about this right here to talk about. Incredible. The Hollywood Reporter puts out a story about this. The Taylor Swift effect is very real. It's taking the sports world by storm. Yeah, not just, listen, ESPN, Fox Sports, they all have to talk about it. I mean, it's something else to talk about in between football. Just to, if they think they can bring up Taylor Swift, it's enough clickbait to get people to talk about it. Yeah, I know. I'm doing it as well. But I didn't do it at the start of the show. The difference is I stuck to my guns. I stuck with the writer's strike and talked about that first because that was what was important to me. Nothing against this story. It got double billing tonight. But I thought it was more important for me to go ahead and talk about the writer's strike first. And I hope all of you will understand. Maybe some of you might not listen to the show because you want that instant gratification. Oh, I'm not waiting for King of Podcasts to give me 30 minutes on the writer's strike before they give me what I really want about Travis and Taylor. I got it. The Fox broadcast of the Chiefs-Bears game, 24.32 million viewers, the most of the weekend. And also Fox's cameras kept repeatedly going back to Taylor Swift, watching the game in the suite. Jersey sales skyrocketed. Fanatics says that Travis Kelce's jersey is now one of the top 5 selling NFL players. Period. Game tickets up. New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelce is now number 1 as of Thursday in the Apple Podcast rankings, number 2 on Spotify. And Travis Kelce's personal Instagram, Sporting News, reports that he's gained more than 300,000 followers by Monday afternoon, a day after the game. 300,000 new followers. Swifties now following Travis Kelce. So, as we know, Travis Kelce's won the Super Bowl twice with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And, he's only dating Taylor Swift, global pop star, first female artist in Spotify history to reach 100 million monthly listeners last month, the first living artist in nearly 60 years to at least have 4 albums at the same time in the top 10 of Billboard's 200 chart, with Speak Now Taylor's version, Midnight's Lover, and Folklore. And what is it, 1989 is on the way up next? That's the next Taylor's version coming up now? Yeah, it's wild. Incredible. And that's it. All right, there's a few more stories I need to bring up before we wrap things up here on the program that I want to go and catch up on. So, big story in radio, SiriusXM, and a possible merger with Liberty Media, who already has a controlling stake into SiriusXM. So a couple of stories that come out for SiriusXM, getting some news. Liberty Media is proposing a merger with SiriusXM to consolidate operations of both companies. And then SiriusXM now wants to get users to tune in outside of their cars. So not so much the satellite radio experience. They want people to go ahead and pick up the SiriusXM app and maybe not listen in their cars. But there's been a lot of issues with SiriusXM. When it comes to beyond in-car listening to SiriusXM on smart speakers or on the phone with the company's app, it's not a seamless experience. That's one of the things they've noticed about all this. So SiriusXM is planning to unveil and start rolling out an overhauled user experience, revamping the in-car service, which includes both traditional satellite radio and 360L, combining satellite and streaming capabilities in their vehicles, and relaunching the mobile app. Company's going to improve content management, ensure more relevant search results, adding user profiles akin to video streaming services to make the listening experience as effortless as possible, regardless of how you're tuning in. Sounds like a plan. Those are a few things that are just dropping into the ether. Two other stories from Billboard I wanted to bring up before we wrap things up. There's one about streaming royalties. And Helen Smith at Billboard talked about that Deezer has created the artist-centric idea to the streaming debate, but other proposals can move the needle without thresholds, making it bad for smaller acts and musical diversity in general. So a couple of things that were brought up in the Billboard article about what they can do to get more royalties to artists is first, raise the subscription prices. We've seen some increases, but they're still just minor. We can't escape that fact. There are ideas about how the business can reallocate royalties as much as many voices as possible to take part in the discussion. And Deezer's proposal to go and do things for the artists was ambitious, but resonates with their own. That Deezer has a plan to set a threshold for boosts in royalties, available only to acts that get a certain number of streams from a certain number of listeners. They want to ask for clarity, according to this article. Independent labels account for 80% of new releases, including artists patiently awaiting discovery, artists who cater to niche audiences, artists with smaller territories, and newcomers who are just starting their artistic journey. Well, radio is supposed to help with that. Radio can help out with that if the independent artists were being pushed to radio and radio actually cared about it. But they don't. So that's the part that's going on. They also say streaming manipulation needs to be addressed. Address noise content. And embracing the fan participation model. Offering creators a space within the service where they can develop incremental revenues from direct relationships with fans. That's the other option. And that's everything. That's covering everything I had here on the show. I thought I was going to have not enough time to go through all this, but no, I got through everything. Covered it all in one shot. That's the program for tonight. I appreciate all of you, each and every one of you, for listening to this program as you always do every week. Subscribing. If you haven't done so, please bookmark kingofpodcasts.com. All my content's there. You can find my stuff on YouTube. You can find everything I'm doing when it comes to my other programs. Okay. The Resica's Real Podcast. And, of course, my other program, which is The Praised and Debaucherous, I do those shows weekly. You can find all my content regularly on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/King of Podcasts. You can find that there as well. And so much more you can go and find in terms of all my social media, which is on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Trends. I do it on LinkedIn, by the way. I also do it there, too. But I do a lot of clips over there. You can go and catch all my content. Keep up with me throughout the week. Come back next week for another Broadcasters Podcast, because remember, content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.